This has been in the works for a while, but I can finally announce that I have sued the government
Surprise, surprise.
to obtain all records related to the government's investigation of former President Donald Trump for retaining classified documents and trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Look, Donald Trump won the 2024 presidential election fair and square. We assume. And that means that the criminal cases against him are over, or at the very least are stalled indefinitely. So why would I do this now when Special Counsel Jack Smith is winding down both of his cases and Trump will return to power in January? Well, in the words of Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis, sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants. In that vein, I, along with my co-counsel, believe that the American people have a right to know what the Department of Justice and the FBI discovered when they investigated Donald Trump. And so we filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia to challenge the DOJ's failure to process two FOIA requests for this historically important information. Now, the next chapter of the USA will be dominated by questions about the rule of law, secrecy, and government corruption. We just witnessed Trump's Attorney General nominee go down in flames because of an ethics investigation involving his sexual activity with underage girls. Unfortunately, we can't access those records because Congress is exempt from FOIA. But the Department of Justice and the FBI are not. We believe that their failure to process these FOIA requests is illegal, and so we're taking action. Now, Special Counsel Jack Smith is winding down the prosecutions against Donald Trump due to the long-standing Department of Justice policy that prohibits the criminal prosecution of a sitting president. This policy also found root in the Supreme Court's decision that Donald Trump enjoyed broad immunity.
Hold on.
Down the prosecutions against Donald Trump due to the long-standing Department of Justice policy that prohibits the criminal prosecution of a sitting president.
I don't know if I like that phrasing. The policy that prohibits. What is this? Would you say it's a policy that prohibits? I thought it was just the understanding that you probably couldn't do it. I don't know if it's technically impossible by legal or policy, like federal rule. I just think the idea is you probably can't do it. I think that's what Eric Holder said. I don't know if there's like an actual official policy saying that it's impossible or it's against the DOJ, unless they really passed a rule or something or established a rule saying it. I thought that this all just came out of that Eric Holder memo, but I could be wrong on that. But
this policy also found root in the Supreme Court's decision that Donald Trump enjoyed broad immunity from prosecution.
The immunity rule, though, basically solidifies that.
Lest these troublesome prosecutors undermine the executive branch's ability to perform its constitutionally assigned functions. Official functions like pressuring state officials to find you just enough votes to ensure victory. Now, Smith requested that the federal courts dismiss both cases about Trump without...
Yeah, it's an OLC memo, Office of Legal Counsel, which sits as the Department of Justice, yeah.
...prejudice, which means the case could be refiled if and when Trump is out of office. But there are numerous statute of limitations problems, and Trump may very well just pardon himself. And so Smith will resign from his position before Trump takes office along...
Can't policy also mean way of operating? Maybe, yeah. Yeah, policy and rule, probably all the same thing. It's just what the federal government decides to do. That's in accordance with the Constitution and congressional federal statute laws, yeah. I guess, yeah.
With an unknown number of attorneys who worked on the case. And as the Washington Post reported, Trump intends to fire all of the lawyers who worked with Smith, including career attorneys typically protected from political retribution.
I just don't, no, that wouldn't be true. Like the Department of Justice, I believe, has like on the books policies for things that you're not supposed to do. I don't know if it's like a policy in the DOJ, like do not indict a sitting president. I don't think that's like an official policy. I think it's just a thing that they think they probably couldn't do. Like if they got challenged somehow in court, I don't even know how they would do that because it would be the federal government defending itself from the federal government. Yeah, I don't even know how they would do that. I'm not sure.
So there's already an effort underway to rewrite history and deny reality. That's why it's critically important to act now to capture the complete record of the federal prosecutions before the records are destroyed, altered, or God knows what the new administration will do with them. And the Freedom of Information Act is the legal vehicle that allows us to accomplish this, and it serves all Americans. It is indifferent to political party or ideology, and FOIA is the sunshine that Justice Brandeis spoke of.
He used the word slightly informally. Yeah, sorry, I'm not correcting him ever and saying that he's like wrong. There are little pedantic things that I think are important to stress, but it's not like he's like wrong in what he said. It was just like a thing to keep in mind, right? Sorry.
And we must act now to have any hope of seeing its light. Now, public trust in government is at an all-time low. In fact, Donald Trump made this a cornerstone of his campaign. And Donald Trump made it clear that he expects his new attorney general to bury the entire Smith investigation. And this may include rewriting or shredding the historical record, or even calling upon the Republican-controlled Congress or his cronies in the Supreme Court to prevent the American public from exercising their legal right to access these critical documents. There's also a serious concern that once the president's allies get what they want from the records, the DOJ won't see a need to continue preserving them. So that's something that we're trying to protect against as well. And that's the core of our lawsuit. The American people have a right to access these documents, as granted by FOIA, and we believe that the DOJ and FBI are not honoring their legal obligations. If nothing else, our lawsuit puts the sword of Damocles in the form of a contempt of court sanction over anyone who decides to power up the metaphorical shredder after giving the data to Trump's allies. So it's imperative that we get to see all of Jack Smith's records as soon as possible. So on November 22nd, 2024, I filed a lawsuit against the Department of Justice and its components, including the FBI, the Office of Information Policy, the OIP, and the Special Counsel's Office, the SCO, for failing to expedite my FOIA requests. And in fact, you can read my lawsuit by clicking on the link down in the description. Now, obviously, if you're going to sue the federal government, you'd want a great lawyer, and luckily, I think we are. But even if you're not suing the government, you want your own great lawyer, and my law firm, the Eagle Team, can help. If you've got in a car crash, suffered a data breach, or are dealing with almost any injury, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney who can. Because it's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can get the best representation and find out what your options are. So just click on the description or call the phone number that's on screen for free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team. And now back to the lawsuit that the Eagle Team has filed. Now, our first request was to the OIP. The OIP is the office that handles FOIA requests for the SCO, and the request includes records maintained by the SCO related to the investigation of Donald Trump and emails of the SCO personnel relevant to the investigation. And central...
My king, I know you saw my message at Destiny. Which one? Did you see Dr. Mike arguing with Dr. Mike that genetics, particularly genes that suggest lack of conscientiousness, are the root cause of poverty and preempt people, calling him a Nazi? No, I have not seen that.
To my request for expedited processing was offering many concessions to ease the review burden, such as excluding confidential or previously classified materials. After all, time is of the essence here, and the bureaucratic lift needed to honor FOIA requests like this is not lost on me. Plus, a request for all records with no exceptions would likely be considered overbroad. More on that later. And well, wouldn't you know it, the OIP responded, and they refused to even process the request. Their response letter indicated to me that they hadn't actually read the request and instead treated it as a request for all records, no exceptions. And the fun part is that they went out of their way to illustrate that they have 1.7 million emails to chew through. You guys, please read the request. I went out of my way to make your jobs easier. This isn't that hard. And for my friends at the OIP watching this, and for all of you...
Can you translate for us non-Americans what Legal Eagle is suing for exactly? No, I wasn't paying attention. It sounds to me like we have these things called Freedom of Information Act, okay? The Freedom of Information Act means that you can petition the government to basically release certain material that maybe is classified that doesn't need to be classified anymore. They'll look it over and they'll say, okay, fine, we'll release this. We call these FOIA requests. It sounds like Legal Eagle put in a FOIA request for access to all of the documentation that would have been on file for Jack Smith's federal investigations and subsequent prosecution of Donald Trump over his January 6th case and the Mar-a-Lago case. And it sounds like he's saying he got a boilerplate response back from the OIP, which is the office of, which is the office responsible for issuing, I guess, like, or dealing with FOIA requests. And he's unhappy with the response that he got because he felt like it was a boilerplate. I didn't pay attention to it. So now he's filing a lawsuit, I guess, seeking an injunction to make it so people can't shred the evidence while he pursues the FOIA request more. I don't know if he said that exactly, but it sounds like that's basically what he's doing, right? Or am I wrong? Did I miss something?
You at home, I cannot stress enough how reasonable, everyday, and typical our request actually is. In fact, in 2021, Jason Leopold and BuzzFeed sued the DOJ for all of the Mueller investigation records and then negotiated with them during the litigation to reduce the scope. So this isn't exactly an unprecedented case. And we shouldn't have to...
Can you please explain it in Zoomer terms now? I don't know Zoomer. I can't speak the skibbity toilet, okay? But basically, Jack Smith was writing a hate post on Donald Trump, and then Jack Smith's social media group got taken over by a new admin, and Jack Smith is going to delete the whole hate post that he wrote, and the Legal Eagle guy wants to see what he was going to write in his hate post before it gets deleted. And when he went to the group and he said, hey, can you show me what he was about to post? They were like, no, we're deleting it. And he's like, okay, well, fuck you. Now I'm going to sue you to do it. There. Okay.
To sit at council table to decide on a reasonable scope of records, and yet the OIP is forcing us to go down this road. But it gets worse. Our second request was to the FBI, and on November 8th, 2024, we submitted to the FBI a FOIA request for, quote, all information about former President Donald Trump in the Central Records System collected or created as part of the investigation into him for unlawfully retaining national security information and for his role in the January 6th insurrection, for which he is currently in criminal litigation in the Southern District of Florida and the District of Columbia. We then advised for both requests that the agencies could wait until the investigation was over before producing records. And then on November 18th, the FBI responded. And I'm trying not to take this personally, they denied that I should be treated as a representative of the news media while not addressing my request for expedited processing, which is just rude.
How rude!
Now, many weeks have passed since my FOIA request, and the fair concessions we made in exchange for expedited processing. But we have yet to receive the response we are legally entitled to. And so, we're left with no choice but to sue the federal government. Now, our lawsuit originally included 2 counts of constructive denial of expedited processing. This type of claim arises under FOIA when a government agency fails to act on a request for expedited processing within the statutory timeframe or otherwise improperly denies a request for expedited processing. So what is my lawsuit seeking? Well, 3 things. 1, a court order for expedited processing of the FOIA request because time is of the essence. 2, injunctive relief to compel the DOJ to comply with the requests. And 3, reimbursement of my costs and attorney's fees.
I believe an injunction is, I think you can get an injunction in an interlocutory manner. What is that? What is it called when you get an injunction before the case is ordered or before the court case is finished? There's a name for this. I don't remember if it's interlocutory or not, but there's a name for an injunction that you can get. Is it a TRO, a temporary restraining order? Is a TRO always? Oh, preliminary injunction is probably what I'm looking for. Yeah, I think he's looking for a preliminary injunction here on 2. And then I think 1 and 3 is what he's looking to win in the case.
Now, I'm not the only one who wants these records. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton also demanded the records, and Republicans in Congress have even warned the Office of the Special Counsel to preserve them. My guess.
What does suing the federal government even mean? Who is personally going to be affected by that on the government? Personally, nobody is affected. You're suing the United States federal government. The U.S. federal government is an institution like a corporation would be. It's an entity, right? And you're taking that entity to court saying that they are failing to uphold some responsibility that they have under contract or under contract or whatever, I guess, or like civilly or something, right? Because it's not like a criminal matter, it's a civil matter, but you're saying that there's some process or procedure that they're not following, and then you're suing them to say that, well, you're engaged in some form of obstruction or something improper, I guess, to compel them to act.
Guess is that we probably want them for reasons that differ from Ken Paxton, but in the short term, we want the same thing. I think it's really important that these records are released in full so that people can review the entire documents for themselves. And the law states that the government must provide expedited processing of FOIA requests in cases in which the person requesting the records demonstrates a compelling need. And a person engaged in the publication of news media prima facie demonstrates the required compelling need when there is, quote, urgency to inform the public concerning the actual or alleged federal government activity. Now, countless legacy media and news platforms have successfully argued this in court. So what gives here? Does Legal Eagle, being one of the biggest and, dare I say, best law-related YouTube channels, not count as a news media platform that serves the public interest? Well, the FBI doesn't think so, as they have denied our classification as a representative of the news media, and they are wrong. Obviously, the mission of this channel is to educate people about the laws that govern our everyday lives in a fun and entertaining way, and it's impossible for us to achieve our mission without vigilant and zealous coverage of the news. And in fact, there are over 3 million of you that subscribe to this channel, and the FBI is telling you that you don't count. Now, unfortunately, due to the way that FOIA litigation progresses, we were unable to challenge the FBI's determination on this point at the same time we challenged the constructive denial of the expedited proceeding. But all hope is not lost. We have filed an amended complaint that covers the fee category, the fee waiver, and the actual production of records, while still keeping the expedited processing claims. And at the appropriate time, we'll be asking the court to expedite its consideration of the case as well. After all, we need to make sure that the DOJ and the FBI don't just hurry up and refuse to release all the records. Now, if this lawsuit is successful, then the American public may finally have the answers to many of the unanswered questions about the Donald Trump investigations. Answers to questions like, what evidence does he have that has not been disclosed? What evidence would prosecutors have used at the Trump trial? How did the Trump immunity decision change their strategy? Did Joe Biden ever communicate anything to Attorney General Merrick Garland or the special counsel? And who were the uncharged co-conspirators? And looking at the Florida case, our success in this lawsuit would mean the public having answers to questions like, who else had access to or moved the records? Was there evidence that Trump kept some classified records in New Jersey or in other locations? What about these surveillance videos and audio recordings? What did Trump's advisors tell the DOJ about his handling of classified info? The American people deserve answers to these questions, and we believe that we are legally entitled to it.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. The conclusion I'm coming to regarding the right is that our best move might be stepping aside and watching the show unfold. Without Democrats to rally against, they'll turn on each other. Every attack we make only unites them against an external enemy. But if we let them be, their wildly conflicting beliefs will inevitably clash, exposing the cracks in their coalition. Their infighting will speak louder than any critiques we can offer. I mean, like, that's kind of true, but the issue is that we live in a whole world where other countries are also doing things. So the United States doesn't have the luxury of just collapsing in on itself and then going on a journey of self-discovery to figure out, like, who we really want to be. The problem is that if that type of stuff happens, there are tons of other interested parties that would see us, divided, or would see their influence expanding in other parts of the world in ways that it might be impossible for us to ever take back.
So even though we are suing the DOJ over these records, it doesn't mean that we are hostile to Smith's investigation. I don't think we're trying to get something from them that Smith doesn't want to release. We've specifically disclaimed any interest in classified or privileged information, and we're trying to help Smith finish the job he started in the least awful way possible. And we specifically said we'd wait until he was done with his report, so we're not even rushing him. Now, for longtime viewers, you might be wondering what happened with the first suit I filed against the White House. Well, these things take time, but there were actually two lawsuits. The first was about the handling of John Bolton's expose, and I haven't talked about this publicly yet because I didn't want to prejudice the lawsuit itself, but we've received a significant number of substantive responses from the FBI, the DoD, and the CIA, including records showing that the CIA was never given any parts of the book to review. And we're in the middle of an appeal of the decision regarding the National Security Council. Now, we always knew that that part was going to be an uphill battle, but one of the points of this lawsuit was to change the case law saying that the NSC is entirely exempt from FOIA, especially under these circumstances. And we will continue to pursue the appeal to make that change. Now, the second lawsuit was a suit that I filed about how Trump fired a bunch of inspectors general who found corruption. Now, we've gotten a ton of records about allegations of OIG misconduct, yet very few about the ones that Trump pushed out for alleged misconduct. And it's pretty clear from these records that he pushed out inspectors general who didn't do anything wrong and didn't push out inspectors general who did. Something to keep in mind next time he pushes out an inspector general. And I already have a quick update. The day we filed our amended...
An Office of Inspector General is the thing that Republicans say they wish existed, and that's why they made DOGE, but exists for, I think, every major federal department. Basically, anytime you read something where it's like a watchdog group found this or whatever, that's an Office of Inspector General. Office of Inspector General is just an office that's supposed to be separate and then investigates the counterbody or whatever that it's set up to. So, there's I'm trying to think of what these get established for. I think I'm pretty sure it's every major. So there's an OIG for the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm pretty sure there's an OIG for the Department of Defense. There's an OIG for for every major department and office in the federal government. There should be an Office of Inspector General. There's a DoD OIG, Department of Education OIG, Department of Energy OIG. These are all the things that the Republicans say they wish existed because they just don't know that they exist. But whatever.
Complaint, the FBI miraculously granted us expedited processing. They like to play these little litigation games. So that's a win for the good guys, and we're one step closer to getting the records. And I'm sure it's because the government is afraid of us. Now, I couldn't have done any of this without the help of my co-counsel, Kel McClanahan, who's one of the preeminent lawyers in national security law. He runs the firm the National Security Counselors, which promotes the ideas that the public needs to be as informed as possible, and that people entangled in legal matters in this field should have reasonable access to knowledgeable legal assistance regardless of income. I suspect that in the coming years, there's going to be a lot of shady dealings that need to be exposed, and there's going to be a lot of government employees and contractors who are going to need help in dealing with whistleblowing and security clearance issues. And Kel and his team are on the job. They operate in large part from donations, especially their pro bono work, and if you'd like to donate to further their mission, they would greatly appreciate it. I already have, and I look forward to working with them in the future. You can check out their website and donate by clicking on the link that's on screen right now or down below. And either way, you can always follow them on Blue Sky at nationalsecuritylaw.org for updates on all their cases, mine included.
Why can't they pass an audit then? The Pentagon can't pass an audit yet because they changed all of the auditing procedures a few years ago, and they're moving some departments into getting them on board with being able to pass those audits. It doesn't mean the money is gone. It doesn't mean the money is missing. The Pentagon was never expected to be able to pass any of these new audits until 2028. It's always been on track for that.